Greetings all! Today, we'll be examining the relatively rare ghost flying type Pokemon Drifloon, the Balloon Pokémon, and its rare evolution Drifblim, the Blimp Pokémon. Though they might look more than a little odd for ghosts, the members of the Drifloon family are intriguing entities that could potentially give you quite the ride if you don't mind the spooky trip.
Drifloon have purple spherical bodies with thin skin, a yellow cross on their face, and a white cloud-like form on the top of their body. They gaze outwards through a pair of black dot-like eyes, and they have but a single pair of small, heart-shaped yellow hands connected to their main body by thin, string-like arms. Their evolved form, Drifblim, have a similar consistency to their skin and a matching cross-marking cloud form on top of their body, but with rib marks running down the length of their forms, with a darker purple color around their main form and a lighter shade of purple closer to the posterior, which has a red jagged end. Their red eyes peer ominously outwards, and their limbs have developed into a series of 4 tassel-like structures with yellow 3-pointed ends. As with Pokemon like Yamask, it is believed that Drifloon and Drifblim are formed from the spirits of deceased creatures burdened with regret, generally appearing in large numbers in humid conditions. In their case, however, there appears to be no distinction between different forms of life, so every Drifloon is stuffed with a random assortment of souls, and every Drifblim is an even larger assortment of resurrected lifeforms stuck together into one cohesive unit, their size expanding for every soul they lead astray and add to their bodies.
This also might explain why Drifloon and Drifblim are designed to look like and function as balloons. If no distinction is made following death in regards to the former identity of a deceased lifeform, then it would only make sense that the final cohesive form made for many individuals would have to take on a form that is capable of reaching similar constructs over long distances. In other words, flight would be necessary over extremely long periods of time. Taking the form of a balloon not only fulfills this necessity, but also ensures that other wild Pokemon do not mistake them for prey.
Unfortunately, this choice of form also comes with 2 very important drawbacks: limited defenses and an inability to control movement. Because the outermost membrane that serves as their skin must be relatively thin in order to ensure proper flight, Drifloon and Drifblim are easily damaged by attacks of all types. While this issue is partially compensated for by their exceptional amount of stamina, it can still prove to be a major vulnerability in battle. Secondly, because of how their bodies are constructed, Drifloon and Drifblim have little to no way of actually controlling their flight direction over long distances and are thus forced to simply drift along with the wind. Considering they only feed on light gases in the air though, this does not seem to bother them that much.
On the plus side, this construct also makes Drifloon and Drifblim, along with Gourgeist, the only ghost types capable of naturally learning the devastating explosion attack, though they do not have the actual strength to do much with it. Moreover, if their body bursts for some unexpected reason, the joke is usually on their attacker, as they let out a horrifying screeching sound as their souls spill out, only for them to reform their skin elsewhere in a safe place.
Their unique forms allow these entities to make the most of their state in that they can quicken their movements if they let go of anything that might be weighing them down. Plus, they can end a battle on an explosive note if they are forcefully burst by a physical blow, granting them access to the Unburden and Aftermath abilities as base abilities. On that same note though, the light gases keeping them afloat can be excited and that extra energy directed into boosting their special power if they are superheated, namely if they are inflicted with a burn, granting them access to their signature Flare Boost ability as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, looking at Drifblim, it can be seen that these creatures are not the most gifted of fighters, as their thin bodies and mediocre offensive potential do not do much to help them to be a true threat on stats alone, most of their base stats being below average for a fully evolved ghost and flying type Pokemon. At the very least though, it can be said that they can move decently fast, having an above average base speed stat for a fully evolved ghost type Pokemon, and their base HP stat is incredibly high, more than being above average for a fully evolved Pokemon of both their types, to the point of having the highest base HP stat out of all flying and ghost type Pokemon, the latter being tied with Giratina. As such, while they might not be able to resist damage all that well, these living balloons can still prove to be a nuisance and can hopefully outlast others to make the most of what offensive power they can acquire, both naturally and with a bit of artificial help. Drifloon are rather simple creatures that generally do not do much other than simply float around and absorb light gases to fuel their bodies. Unlike their evolved form, the outer membranes of Drifloon are not very good at insulating their internal gases from outside changes in temperature and humidity, in turn making it very difficult for them to fly at all in cold, dry weather, as their internal gases will condense and cause them to lose buoyancy. As such, Drifloon are almost never seen outside unless it is fairly warm and humid out. While Drifblim have very limited control over their flight direction, Drifloon are completely at the mercy of the wind and will often travel hundreds of miles along the wind even if they do not want to. Not surprisingly, many people have come to refer to Drifloon as the signpost for wandering spirits because of this inability to control their motion. It is also interesting to note that, in comparison to Drifblim, Drifloon tend to be slightly mischievous in that they enjoy grabbing hold of the hands of children with their long string-like arms before attempting to take them away to the spirit world. Or if they just want to be friends, it can be difficult to tell the difference between the two in practice. Unfortunately, because the physical strength is extremely poor, they more often than not end up getting pulled along instead until an adult manages to notice that the child is carting around a ghost type. Not surprisingly for this reason, Drifloon tend to dislike heavy children and those that play roughly with them and will often float away quickly from the latter to avoid having their bodies potentially burst. While they are still primarily dependent upon the wind for motion, Drifblim do have an advantage over their pre-evolved form in that they can control the altitude at which they fly by manually releasing and absorbing gases made from the souls that comprise them through the funnel-like extension on their lower torso.
They are also physically stronger than Drifloon, enough to be able to utilize the powerful Phantom Force attack immediately after evolving, and can easily support the weight of a single human in flight, though where they go is ultimately not up to either party. One story even tells of a man who went riding on a Drifblim, only to never be seen again.
This is not an uncommon sight though, as it is rumored that on the rare occasions that Drifblim start to deflate at dusk, it is because they are burdened severely, in that they are successfully carrying away people and Pokemon into the spirit world. Furthermore, the outer membrane of Drifblim is relatively thicker than that of Drifloon, and better tempered against the effects of temperature and humidity, in turn allowing them to maintain the capacity to fly in nearly all types of environments. Interestingly enough though, Drifblim tend to conserve the energy by remaining lax and drowsy during the daytime, only perking up and becoming active at dusk. When that time does come, Drifblim float up into the sky in sometimes staggering numbers towards parts unknown. The fact that they instantly disappear from view the moment they notice something watching them, even when under careful observation, seems to denote that they want the destination to remain a mystery. Lastly, it is noted that Drifblim are fairly unique among ghost types in that they have been observed teaching younger groups of Drifloon in the wild, and even going so far as to carry a small posse of them wherever they go, something that ghost types rarely do. In a sense, it could be said that this is their way of safely passing old traditions, beliefs, and thoughts among generations without revealing them to outsiders. This in turn could mean that Drifloon and Drifblim somehow retain the memories of their constituents or otherwise have developed their own sort of society, but more research is needed to determine if this is actually the case. Regardless, this makes Drifblim extremely dangerous to approach in the wild, as they may be carrying a posse of 6 to several dozen Drifloon with them at any time.
While they might look a bit goofy to some and hard to take seriously, the members of the Drifloon family are unique specters that can carry off those that dare to underestimate them, or at the very least try to. You might find their limited defenses to be a bit of a pain, but given the sheer amount of punishment they can nonetheless take in combat, there is more than one way to make use of their abnormal forms, especially if their abilities can be taken advantage of.
Just do yourself a favor and try to avoid them when the sun begins to set and dusk settles in. A single one of these inflated creatures might not be enough to get you off your feet, but let yourself get surrounded and you may find yourself on a one-way trip to a world you likely will never be able to return from.
Thank you all for watching this video. It is always a pleasure to help teach others about the world of Pokemon and the many facets of it that exist in both the world we call home and the world they call home. If you'd like, please leave a comment and subscribe and ring the bell to this channel to get regular updates on content and anything else that might be going on. You can find me and my written work on DeviantArt under the name Utitus, and be informed of information and content uploads on my Twitter page and my Patreon page. Donations are always welcome. Always remember, the world of Pokemon is a vast and varied place, and there's no telling what secrets might be hiding just around the corner. So keep watch, stay vigilant, and always prepare for the unexpected. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of the day.